Alright, so this is the problem set for Module 3, Lesson 11. This video might be a little bit longer because I'm not in the classroom today. I am out for a training. So my students who are watching this in class, since I'm out, you are going to go to your problem set, Lesson 11, which is in your Learn book, and that is on page 85. So go ahead and pause this video so that you can get to that page. For my students that are in the classroom, I do want you to pull this page out because you are going to turn this page in after you complete this video, so they make sure that you did follow along with the video while the substitute was there. You may need an extra sheet of paper because there's not much room here to show your work. So I would also grab an blank sheet of notebook paper, maybe 2, depending on how many you think you're going to need. So go ahead and pause the video. Make sure you have paper, make sure you have pencil, and you're ready to go. Alright, so this is Lesson 11 problem set, page 85. We are adding and subtracting with fractions, with mixed numbers, and we are also needing to figure out if something is greater than or less than 1, as well as greater than or less than a half. So, let's look at 1A. We do need to find our common denominators. So if we count by 2s and 7s, we get 2, 7. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I can stop there. I should be able to recognize that I can stop with a 14. Reminder, you don't want to keep going for too long because eventually they have a same number in common. So if you need to start with the next number, and then if you don't see something in common, then keep continuing with those numbers. So 7, I get 7, 14. So 14 is going to be my LCM. Those who are in class, I would pause the video as needed so that you can write down what you do need. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to look here at my 1/2. For 2, it took me 7 times to get there. So I'm going to multiply bottom and top by 7. When I do this, I get 7 out of 14. So I'm going to go ahead and write this here. Students, I do want you to write this on the problem set. So whatever you get that for your equivalent fractions, go ahead and write this part down. The rest of this here, you're probably going to want to write on your notebook paper. And so now let's look at our 2 out of 7. Took me 2 times to get there to 14. So I'll multiply top and bottom by 14. So I get 4 out of 14. So I'm going to bring that over here. My denominator is going to stay the same. Reminder, we made them the same for a reason. Do not try to add them together. Now we'll do 7 plus 4, which is 11. So I get 11 out of 14. We should be able to recognize that this is less than 1 because to have a whole, I would need 14 out of 14 or something bigger than that. I've got to have an improper fraction in order for it to be less than, in order for it to be more than. So if it's an improper fraction, then it's going to be greater than 1. If it's not an improper fraction, then it's going to be less than 1. So make sure you pause so that you can get all the information you need, because I am going to erase what I did write out off to the side over here. So if you still need that, make sure you pause. All right, now I'm going to look at C. I have 1 and 1/4 minus 1/3. So I have 1 and 1/4 minus 1/3. Again, you're going to want to do this on your notebook paper. When I look here, my denominators are not the same. So I'm going to count by 3s and 4s. and I get 3, 6, 9, 12, and I get 4, 8, 12. So the common denominator should be 12. For 3, it took me 4 times to get there. So whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. When I multiply this, I get 4 out of 12. For 4, it took me 3 times to get there. So I get 3 out of 12. So I'm going to come over here and rewrite this as 1 and 3 out of 12 minus 4 out of 12. I cannot take 3 minus 4, so I'm going to come borrow over here. Reminder, I'm borrowing a whole, so I'm going to look at my denominator here. I'm going to keep that, make it easy for myself. And then to make a whole box, I have another 12, so 12 out of 12. Then I can do 3 plus 12, which is 15 out of 12. And now I can do 15 minus 4, which is 11 out of 12. This is not an improper fraction, so that should tell you that this is less than 1. Reminder, improper fraction means that we have too much on top and it's over full, so we've made a full box at some point in time, or maybe 2 full boxes, depending on what the numbers are. Again, I would pause if you're still writing any of this off to the side here, because I am going to erase it so that I have room to write it out. And now let's look at 3 and 5/8 minus 2 and 5/9. So I have 3 and 5/8 minus 2 and 5/9. Separate those. I'm going to count by 8s and 9s. I get 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. Hopefully I recognize that that is a multiple of 9 as well. I get 9, 18, 27, oops, my pen doesn't right, 36, 45, 54, 63, and 72. So for 9, it took me 8 times to get there. So that gives me 40 over 72. Reminder, you already have your multiples of 8, so if you need to look, and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see that that's 40. And then for 8, it took me 9 times to get there. So I get 45 over 72. So now I have 3, oops, let me make that a little bigger. 3 and 45 over 72 minus 2 and 40 over 72. My denominator is 72. I can subtract 45 and 40. Give me 5 here. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. So I get 1 and 5 out of 72. I have 1 and I have other parts to it. So that would tell me that that is greater than 1. So if you have a whole number, whether it's 1, 2, 3, and you have another fraction with it, that should automatically tell you that that's going to be bigger than 1. It's not an improper fraction. Could I turn this into an improper fraction? Yes. But again, these I would look and say they're not improper. So that would tell me it's less than 1 because I also don't have a whole number with it. Here I do have a whole number. So my whole number is 1. So we know we have 1 and some more. So it's going to be bigger than 1. Again, if you need a pause to write everything down, do so. Reminder, I do want you turning this in. All right, next we're going to come down here. And now they're wanting us to see if something is greater than or less than a half. I'm just going to do 2 examples here with mixed numbers. I feel like the mixed numbers are going to be the most complicated out of everything with the fractions. So I'm going to focus on that because then we still have fractions in there and you're also getting all those other steps that are needed. So let's look at C. I have 1 and 1/7 minus minus 7/8. So I'm going to come over here and write this. 1 and 1/7 minus 7/8. And I'm going to count by 7s and 8s, and I get 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, and 56. And here I get 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, and 56. So if you need to pause, do so. The number that they have in common is 56. So for my 7, it should have taken me 8 times to get there. So when I multiply, I get 8 over 56. And for 8, it took me 7 times to get there. So I get 49 over 56. I cannot subtract 8 minus 49, so I'm going to come borrow 1. So I'm going to look at my denominator, which is 56. To get a whole box, I need 56. When I add those, I get 64 over 56. And then you've got to subtract. Your denominator will be 56. If you need to do some of this other like subtraction off to the side, you can take the 2 numerators and just subtract them. So 4 minus 9 we can't do. 14 minus 9, 5, and 5 minus 4, 1. And we don't have any whole numbers. So I get 15 out of 56. But we want to know if it's greater than or less than a half, sorry. I can either take the denominator and say 56 divided by 2, because if I cut it into 2 parts, that makes me a half. So I can make 2 groups there. I can make 8 groups here. So in order to have a half of 56, I would need 28. And to be bigger than a half, I would need more than 28. To be less than a half, I would need less than 28. We have less than a half, so it's going to be less than a half there. Or you can do what you did in 4th grade and compare. Using the butterfly method with half, I can do 15 times 2 is 30. 56 times 1 is 56. This side, for my fraction, what I got is less than a half. My half is bigger, so I can go and say it's less than a half. Whichever way you want to do it, as long as you understand if it's greater than or less than a half. Again, pause if you need to, because I am going to go ahead and erase everything off to the side. And now I'm going to look at D, which is 3/7 plus 2/6. So I get 3/7 plus 2/6. Oops. Going to count by 6 and 7. I get 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. I get 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. So for 6, it's going to take me 7 times to get there. When I multiply that, I get 14 out of 42. And for 7, it takes me 6 times to get there, which is 18 out of 42. So my denominator is 42. I'm going to add 18 plus 4. So I can do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Carry 1 up. 1, 2, 3. So 32 out of 42. Again, I can take that 42, divide it by 2, see how much a half is. I can make 2 groups of 2 with 4. I can only make 1. So in order to have a half, I need 21. I have more than 21. I have 32. So that's going to tell me that this is greater than a half. Or again, you can take that 32 and 42 and compare it to a half and use the butterfly method, whichever one you want to use. Pause it if you are still writing the information that you need. And then we are going to go on to number 3. It tells us to use the greater than, less than, or equal sign symbol to make the following statements true. So they give us a couple of expressions here. So we've got to work both sides out. So let's do 15. And again, you're going to want to do this on your notebook paper. Minus 11 and 2/5. I'm going to count by 5s and 7s. I get 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 is what they will have in common. Then 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. So for me to get to 35 from 5, it took me 7 times. So I get 14 out of 35. And then for 7, it takes me 5 times. So I get 20 out of 35. 20 minus 14 will be 6 out of 35. Then my whole numbers, 5 minus 1 is 4, 1 minus 1 is 0. So this side is 4 and 6 out of 35. If you need to pause so that you can write all of that, you can. I'm going to move on to the next side here. So I get 4 and 4 out of 7 plus 2 out of 5. My denominators are the same for what they had here. They had 7 and 5, and I've already got that written out for over here, so I don't have to do that again if you've already got those. It looks like the same on problem set B, and problem set C here looks like it will also have that same denominator. Now A doesn't, so that means it's going to be similar for homework. So if you recognize that they already have what you've already worked with, you don't have to go through and rewrite them again. You can just use those that you already have. So for 7, it took me 5 times to get to 35. So that gives me 20 over 35. And for 5, it took me 7 times. So that gives me 14 over 25. Oh, 35. Sorry. So my denominator is 35. When I take 20 plus 14, I get 34 over 35. And I add the 4 to it. So I have 4 and 34 over 35. So to compare these, my whole numbers are not going to help me because they're both the same. It's kind of the same as lining up for decimals. So I would go ahead and line them up. And I've got 6 and 35, and I've got 34 and 35. Both my whole numbers are the same, so that's not going to help me out. But I'm going to look here and think of a model. It takes me, if I was to make a model, I'd have 6 shaded in out of 35. And here, I'd have 34 shaded in out of 35. So I'd have more shaded in here. So that means that this fraction is going to be bigger. Or you can compare them using the butterfly method, and you can go and multiply and see which sides are going to be bigger. But you should be able to recognize 35 times 6 is going to be less than 35 times 34. So it tells me that the 34 over 35 is bigger. So make sure you make that sign eat the biggest one. This might be where you have the most difficult at for understanding what is bigger than the other one, since we do have whole numbers in it as well. But do know that if for some reason one whole number is larger than the other, then I don't have to look at my fractions because that already tells me which one's bigger. It's going to be knowing how to compare those fractions. All right, so you will want to use this as notes. I would look at that, but I would have it torn out if you didn't tear it out already. I think I said at the beginning of the video to tear it out. Use it for notes, but you are going to be turning this in as well with whatever you complete on homework today. And let's go over and look at your homework pages that you're going to need. So out of your Succeed book, which is the red book, you're going to want to go to page 65. So go ahead and grab that book, pause the video. So you'll be tearing out page 65 and 66. If you want to, you can take out the homework helpers as well. It is on page 63, so you can pull that page out as well. But make sure you pull out page 65 and 66. And you are going to highlight what I have highlighted here. So I have all of number 1 highlighted. I have all of number 2 highlighted. And then number 3, you're going to circle A and D. And before I go on to the word problem, you do have an edge elastic today. It is 1129, module 3, lesson 11 on edge elastic. Now, it is a little bit different from the page here. Same problems, but they are just going to ask you to select the ones. So on number 1, it's going to ask you to select the ones that are all greater than 1. So you need to work these out to figure out which ones are greater than 1, and those are going to be the ones that you select. Then on number 2, on edge elastic, it's going to ask you to select all of those that are greater than a half. So again, you're going to have to work out all 4 to understand which ones are greater than a half. And then I believe this is set up as number 3, and this is number 4. And then when you go to your word problems, you're going to circle number 6. And this is actually going to be number 5 on edge elastic. You do have a number 6. It is a review problem. Do that first before you do anything else. But before you pause the video, I am going to kind of guide you in the right direction of the word problem since I'm not there, but you are going to have to solve it on your own. So, if you're still watching, let's go ahead and see how we would set up our word problem. It says that Mr. Kent wants to paint 2 doors and several shutters. It takes 2 1/8 gallons of paint to coat each door and 1 3/5 gallons of paint to coat all of his shutters. If Mr. Kent buys 3 2-gallon cans of paint, does he have enough to complete the job? So we are going to circle our important numbers. So we know that I would probably circle this too, that we have 2 doors. It says several shutters. It takes 2 1/8 gallons to coat each door. So 2 1/8 gallons to coat each of those doors. And 1 3/5 gallons to coat all of the shutters. If Mr. Kent buys 3 2-gallon cans of paint, does he have enough? So that is our question. So we can come over here and we can set up some strip diagrams. And I can say I know for the door it's going to take 2 1/8. And it tells me he has 2 doors though. So I'm going to need that twice. So 2 1/8. So to find my total, I would add those 2 together. My denominators are the same, so that should be pretty easy there. So you would set that up to add that. And then the shutters, we don't know how many shutters he has, but we know all of them. It's going to take 1 3/5. So after you add your 2 doors together, I would go ahead and add that 1 3/5 to that answer as well. And then it says if he buys 3 2-gallon cans, so here's a gallon can, or a 2-gallon can. Here's another 2-gallon can. Here's another 2-gallon can. So how many gallons would he have? You're going to have to figure out that part. So then you're going to have how much he needs. And then you're going to have how much he is going to have. And you need to determine if he has enough. Reminder, in order for him to have enough, this value cannot be bigger than how much he has here. So you're going to have to set that up on your own. I have guided you where you needed to go, so hopefully that helps. Reminder, do number 6 since it's a review question. It's not on these Edge Elastic pages. Use problem set to help you. When you are done, I want you to turn everything in. Your problem set, your notebook pages, and the homework here. You can staple it all together. The stapler should be sitting on the horseshoe table. Make sure your name is on your paper so I know whose it is, so that I know who followed along and did what they should be doing.